The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in the northern part of I consider to be one of the three best states in the world. New York, where Alan Blumkin, my guest, is from. How about this? In Alabama, where my guest, Pam Henderson, is from. Whoa. Welcome to you both.
Well, thank you.
Pam, this is your first time on Comfortably Zoned. I want you to be comfortable. So I want to start it out with you giving an introduction to our audience, a little elevator bio, if you will, about Pam Henderson. What do you say?
Well, okay. Good to be here. First off, thanks for inviting me, and I think I'm amongst a couple of really great guys, and I don't know, I'm mostly a collector at heart, and I have a massive collection, and I kind of learn from it every day. And, I listen to intelligent people who know what they're talking about, and I just have fun with it, and, do a little research, nothing heavy, like I said, just have some fun with it.
Okay, how did you get interested in baseball in the first place?
Well, I like baseball a lot, the history of it. We don't have professional team here. We have minor league.
Right.
But I like the history. I'm kind of 1970s back. I really don't follow modern day baseball too much. So,
well, your mom did collecting, and she ran shows. Tell us about that.
Yes, that's kind of how I got the bug. She promoted shows in Arlington, Texas, back in the 80s and 90s, when the cards and everything were just, blowing up at that time. And she promoted 2 nationals. And, I really enjoyed doing the shows and working at the shows and meeting people and hearing stories. And it just, that's, how I got started with it.
Okay, before we talk about your interest in baseball gloves, which happens to be one of my interests, let me talk to Alan Blumkin. And Alan, what is the collectible scene like?
Oh, I've been out of that for quite a while. The prices for certain cards are just, millionaires, pick up. Like, I'm sure there's a run on Shohei Ohtani cards right now. But especially the old cards. Now, I have reprints a lot of those sets because I collected them when I was a kid. And, there's no way in the world I could afford the real ones. And, but the prices, I'm on some mailing lists, and the prices for some of the stuff, especially the old-time superstars, is astronomical. And even 25 years after he passed away, Mickey Mantle is still number one.
Right.
Yep.
Now, Alan, how did you get interested in collecting?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was 8 years old, and I started buying baseball cards, like a nickel for $5. It was really cheap in those days. And I, with the Bowmans and the Topps Redbacks. And when I was looking at them, I said to myself, who the heck is Yogi Berra? Because I couldn't understand the nickname. And that's why I started getting. I didn't see the Bobby Thompson game because I was in school, but I watched the last couple of games of that World Series. And then 1952, I went really heavily into it.
So
and like Pam,
cards were your gateway to following
yes,
the game.
My parents couldn't care less. In fact, there was a story. We had just moved out to Queens. My grandfather, my mother's father, gave me $50. And I walked down to the local candy store. I bought 50 cents worth of baseball cards. And my mother was absolutely furious. Of course, I couldn't keep them. You know, one year went, the old ones that went out, and then the new ones came in.
Right. Like most of our mothers, they cleaned out the closet on a regular basis. One of the disadvantages of being a kid, you don't have the power to control what you keep. And
and I stopped when I went to college. I stopped buying cards for almost for forever.
Okay.
I have some sets from the mid '80s, you know, with Darryl Strawberry and Gooden and some of the, you know, those guys.
Right.
But you know, now, you know, besides not liking what's happening to the game as it's played, there's so much movement of players that you look at the roster, box score of a game, and you don't even know half of these guys that are in the game. And some of them could be around for several years. I also want to mention that Pam has been a very loyal listener to my old podcasts.
Hey, let me tell you something that you might not know about Pam. When you were sick and you were recovering from some back surgery, and she was the most concerned person about your health. She considers you to be a mentor for good reason. Tell me the reason why you're such a baseball maven. Give me a history of that, Al, with Saber and what have you.
Basically, I have a photographic memory.
Okay.
In fact, I'm the type that can tell you what happened in a ball game 60 years ago, but I couldn't tell you where I put something 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
The important things we remember.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
Yeah, and when I joined Saber in 1974, I was one of the probably in the top 100. A friend of mine brought me in told me about it in 1974, and I joined, and I gave my first public speech in 1985. It was on the last two innings of the seventh game of the 1960 series, and I just did speak every year for a while until they started. You know, you had to submit them with, you know, and they started doing all these analytics nonsense. Also, I played in trivia contests for 12 years, and I won 5 teams because they didn't have individuals for most of that time. And then I won 2 straight individuals, and I retired from playing. I did run a few of them where I emceed, and I got a standing ovation one time for calling for a bathroom break because those last sessions take a long time. And I just became very, after the first time I spoke at Chase Stadium in 1985, but I had no idea how I'd be received. People came up and congratulated me afterwards. I interviewed Dick Grote in February, and a friend of mine helped me cut the tapes, and so I took it out to Oakland in 1985 for the National, and I wasn't nervous at all.
Really?
And the whole thing when you do something like that is you have to be in control of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There's no substitute. Yeah, because I was at one conference where this presenter described Early Wynn as a left-hander, and his whole credibility was shot.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You got to kind of know what you're saying.
Yeah,
right.
I've made several lasting friendships because in recent years, because of my health issues, I went to every one from 1984 to 2011, except to Seattle in 2006. And after 2011, which is something I never should have done, flying out nonstop to Long Beach, California, the only three I've made since that was, and it was because I got car rides to Philadelphia in 2013, here in 2017, and Pittsburgh in 2018. Of course, this year and last year were canceled because of the pandemic, and 2019 was in San Diego, which there's no way for me to get there. So next
That's a really long flight.
Yeah, and I had just had my first back surgery in 2010. I was able to felt a lot better, and I was able to go to Atlanta for that one in the last minute. And but Long Beach was that led to more back problems. That was a very bad decision on my part. But next year is in Baltimore, so I hope I can get a ride down there.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey, Pam, let's get to you a little bit. I want to hear your voice. Tell me about your mom and how she got into collectibles, and how much of her collection did you keep?
Well, I do have quite a bit of her collection. As you know, my mom had a surgery that went bad, and she was basically in a coma for 5 years. It was just very heartbreaking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I mean, those things happen, and we should all, be concerned when we go under the knife, and even a small surgery can turn into a big thing. But she just started collecting. Now, my brother, I have an older brother, and he collected cards, all throughout the early 60s. And I would kind of, play with them some. He'd always toss me the chewing gum. But no, I really got involved in it probably, I would say I was probably 30 years old. I have 2 children, and I was raising my kids and, just watching baseball from TV, and I actually do other collectibles too, but baseball's my favorite. And the shows were just great. There was vendors, from everywhere, and I kind of settled in on. I was kind of late getting in the card game, and by the late '80s, early '90s, and it just seemed like there was too much to learn about collecting cards. I mean, I have some, but I was into more of the, old programs and, equipment, bats, gloves, the other
gloves.
Stuff.
There's the magic word. Tell me about the most interesting glove you have. Interesting to you.
I guess a Joe Sewell glove because they're so rare and hard to come by. And he's from Alabama, so I was real happy to add that one to my collection.
Okay.
I met a lot of people in Arlington, Texas. You know, there a lot of collectors there, a lot of money, and you know, I'm you know just met people who kind of specialized in things, but I dealt in paper a lot, sporting news, you know, SIs, baseball magazine, old programs, and I would use the vendors were always very nice to me because of my mom, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
they would take time with me, and you know, I'd hear stories, and you know, I guess dealing in that, you know, I met a lot of intellectuals, you know, who collected books and they like to read, so you know that kind of went hand in hand. But yeah, that's kind of where I really started enjoying it.
Okay, Pam, you grew up in Alabama. As you said, you didn't have a major league team in your proximity. Who did you root for long distance?
Well, you know, of course, Atlanta is, you know, just a couple of hours away. You know, I'd pull for them, and you know, the Barons, the Birmingham Barons, and
Right.
you know, they have a very rich history in the Southern League, and you know, just I like the Yankees. I like their history, their tradition. You know, the Cincinnati Reds. You know, I like them a lot. You know, the older the team, the more of a tradition they have. And, you know, I like the Rangers. My mom did their winter carnival. But, of course, they're what I consider to be a newer team. Well, they're starting to get some age to them. But, you know, like
Aren't
I said,
we
the
all?
older
Aren't
the better.
we all? I'd like to stop the aging process for just 5 minutes. that would be nice. If we do the first 5 minutes, maybe we could go from there. But not likely to happen. Pam, tell me about your mom. How'd she get into collectibles?
Well, she, you know, the baseball card craze started going crazy in probably the early 80s. She started, you know, buying cards and making sets with them and selling them, you know, handmade sets. She opened a card shop in Arlington. You know, Arlington's in between Fort Worth and Dallas. And, you know, it's, you know, a lot of people, a lot of interest. She was successful. And then just started promoting shows, and they just really, you know, grew, and everybody liked her. She tried to be real fair, and, you know, it just took off real quick.
Did she have card signings? Did she bring in players for card signings?
Oh, yes. You know, Mickey Mantle, she did all sports, too, and she had Muhammad Ali. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was always quite a, you know, quite a cast there for her show. She did 3 or 4 a year, and she did the Winter Carnival for the Rangers. That was always a lot of fun. They participated, and you know, the people there are eager, you know, for baseball and sports, and everything's fairly new, but you know, she had a lot of, you know, dads that bring their kids in, and, you know, moms too. And and then she got into the autographs, and, you know, that was a whole new avenue, you know, that opened up. And that was always exciting. And she would listen to their input about what and who to bring in, you know, and she always created a lot of excitement in the shows, and you know, she wouldn't release all the names of who was going to appear, and the players just loved her. I've got countless photographs of them just hugged up to her. She was like their mom, and she always babied them, and take them out for a pair of cowboy boots. That was something she liked to do.
They're in Texas. Got to have cowboy boots in Texas. And maybe a gun. Maybe a gun. That would come in handy sometime.
No, let's not. I don't think she took them for a gun. I guess she would have had they asked, but she always had a limo pick them up, and she treated them very well. She would do little things like find out what their favorite foods were and what they liked, and she would do the little things that she had no problems.
Who was she awed by, and who were you awed by?
Well, I tell you who really liked her was Willie Mays. And,
really?
He didn't do a whole lot of shows, but he would do one for my mom, And, I guess I like Willie because he's from Birmingham. And, I have quite a few Willie Mays collectibles and, autographs, gloves, and that sort of thing. I never did just get awestruck with them. It's funny,
No, it isn't. I know the feeling. You got to have the self-confidence to believe that you put your pants on one leg at a time. Excuse the expression, Pam, but and so do they. And I like the idea that you treat them like normal human beings.
Yeah, well, that's how they really like it. There's enough fans out there that have bought autograph tickets, and, they give them all the love they need. I never got tired of watching the people go through the autograph line just so they could meet their hero, and it was just the same look on their face, every one of them. It's just pure love.
That's what baseball gives you, memories and pure love. I wonder, and I'm going to ask you, Alan, and I'm going to ask you, Pam, the same question. If we can predict 25, 30 years from now, who will be the person that, like, Mickey Mantle's the ultimate when people look back on nostalgia from the 50s. I loved Willie Mays too. We all did. But Mickey had a certain something, as did Yogi. Who will be, that was for you, Alan, your favorite player of all time, Yogi Berra?
In fact, Pam gave me a while back a autographed 8x10 of him. And I know it had to be for a while because anytime those last few years they did card shows, and they gave the family give him a picture of the Robinson play in the World Series. Yogi would say Yogi Berra, and underneath that he was out with a couple of exclamation points.
There's a lot of stories about that. He went to his grave thinking that Jackie was out.
Oh, yeah.
I'll ask you both. Who's going to be...
One last thing. I use his quotes as often as I can.
His quotes in general, yes.
Yeah, general, yeah. Like after the 1960 World Series, the writer asked him what happened. He said, "We made too many wrong mistakes."
I actually think his quotes, they make sense to me. So
yeah, well, he came out with 3 books.
Wavelength.
He came out with 3 books on the quotes that did very, very well.
I heard a YouTube thing with Mickey Mantle, and he was talking about the 60 World Series that you're referring to. and the ball that Mazeroski hit went over Yogi's head into the stands.
No, out of the stands. I was there when I saw it.
Oh, okay. Well, over the wall. How about that?
Over the wall, yeah.
And Yogi reputedly, as said Mickey Mantle, they just looked at each other, and Yogi shrugged his shoulders, and neither of them had words. What are you going to do? That's what Yogi said. What are you going to do? Now, Mantle reacted. He had been in the big leagues for 10 years, and he said he cried like a baby at the end of that game. And just goes to show you how seriously they took it, and what a shock it was. You were at that game. Who's going to be the player 25 years from now that we look back upon nostalgically, like people, like we all do, Yogi, Mickey, Willie Mays? Who's going to be that player that's playing today that's going to get that love and acclaim 25 years from now? No right or wrong answer. What do you think, Pam?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. I really don't follow modern day baseball too much, but you know. Okay.
That's as good an answer as, that's honest. You didn't make it up. How about you? How about you, Al Blumkin? Who do you predict 25 years from now will be getting anywhere near the same amount of love as Yogi Mick and Duke and all those guys?
It's very, very hard to say because my gut feeling tells me no one, and that's because of free agency. There were two pitchers who might, Kershaw and Scherzer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they have the numbers to qualify for Cooperstown already. So unless there's a major drop off, those who qualify but loved, I don't think, because of the way the salaries are and free agency and a few other things, I don't think that's possible again.
Sad.
Yeah, it is really.
Yeah, I'm sorry the kids are missing out on the fervor that we followed the game with. It really breaks my heart because it would have been nice to pass it down as my grandfather passed the game on to me, as your mom, Pam, passed the game on to you. And Alan, maybe you could tell me, who passed the game on to you?
I told you the baseball cards. My parents had no interest. My mother developed some interest several years later. Her favorite was Hank Bauer.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Yeah, but my father could care less.
Okay. Hank, when I went to games as a kid, either at the Polo Grounds or later Yankee Stadium, I'd always sit in the right field grandstand, and I'd always get some sort of reaction from Hank before the game. How you doing, Hank? Blah, blah, blah. He'd look up and wink and what have you. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
No question about that. Your mother had some good taste. Both your mothers had good taste. If your mother, Pam, got friendly with Willie Mays, oh my God, is there anything you can tell me about Willie that maybe I don't know and the audience might not know about him personally? Pam.
Well, I mean, he just, was a great ball player for one. had to endure a lot, during his time and, growing up in the South and, playing in the Negro Leagues. And, I'm sure, he had some bitterness there, but, I think for the most part he was just, happy to be as successful as he was and doing what he was obviously had the natural abilities and, physical means to, make a very good living and have admiration from his fans, but other than that, the shows were, kind of hectic and, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him at the show, but he had Mr. Leo with him. He kind of liked to bring Leo DeRozier with him, and, I think they were kind of buddies. And
oh, that must have been a great show. I would have killed to have been at a show with Willie and Leo. Wow.
Well, my brother he kind of had the easier job than I did. He sat with the players while they signed, and he has so many great stories. I mean, really great stories. And he's real easy to talk to, and like Al, he's very knowledgeable, and like he collected the cards, and he might not pass in school, but he knew the statistics of every player in the game, So
okay, do you think he'd enjoy a podcast, being a guest on our podcast?
I think he would. I actually think he would, and he's a big baseball guy, and he does tours out at. I say he does the best tours out at Rickwood Field. We have the oldest ballpark in America, and it's a real jewel, and he enjoys taking people around and giving them the history of the park and showing them around, and I think most people would agree he probably gives the best tour.
Okay,
if you're ever in town, I'll get you a tour.
I would love to have him as a guest, and maybe you can set it up. Pam, if you had fun and if you were comfortable, I'm sure he would beat you.
Oh, I'm sure. And like I said, he's the one with all the stories. And he actually lived in Texas during the show times. I would just go out. I've always lived in Alabama. But I would go out for the shows to help, and, my mom set me up with some tables, and, I just really enjoyed that experience.
Pam, I just want to ask you, I'm curious, where did you get the Bronx accent?
Well, I guess I'm trying to make it where people can understand me.
Okay, well, there's nobody that can be understood like a Bronxite.
Yeah, well, Pam also sent me a message that she loved my accent, and I'm loving my accent. My accent I've had this accent ever since I could start talking. I dropped my R's and all the things.
What accent? I'm from New York. What accent? Everybody else has
New York,
accent. All right. Hey, you guys may put a smile on my face this morning, and you make a great combination. So Pam's going to bring her brother. This was a good show.
Oh, I enjoyed it very much so.
That's music to my ears.
Yeah, one thing, this time I don't have to tell Pam that my latest podcast is available.
Okay. She always seems to find them because
yeah.
I learned so much from them. They're great.
Thank you on his behalf. He is absolutely the maven of Comfortably Zoned Network. We go to him with Peter Golenbach, how Bach, all these, you're always in the background knowing your stuff, Alan.
Thank you.
So glad you're a part of this. And Pam, welcome. I hope you become part of the family. And it was just great. And Pam Henderson, Alan Blumkin, I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all on Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We'll be back when we are. And I'd just like to thank everybody for listening. And I've got the greatest gig in the world. I get to speak to some wonderful people. Thank you both for being here. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Adios and happy trails.
Thank you, Ralph. And Pam, you did great.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you, Al. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Oh, I love it. Be well, guys. Come back soon.
All right,
Okay.
dear.
Bye-bye.
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 The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.